Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. We played D&D last week, so this is the campaign diary. The party fought a bunch of trolls, and that's about it. So until next week, peace out. Okay, so I mean, obviously there's a little bar at the bottom of the video, so you know that's not the end, so let's do it right. When last we left our heroes, the party's trying to get to the city of the glass pool. It's a Koatoa city that the mind flayers are using to mount their assault on the mundane world. And the gnomes told them that people retreating from the city of the glass pool often get ambushed by these trolls. So the players thought, look, let's just go kill all those trolls. It'll be a straightforward knockdown, drag out battle. And after all the politics with the gnomes and all the thorny business of having these two disparate parties come together and then trying to pull them apart, it will be a nice change of pace. They enter the troll warrens, they go down a long passageway, they find these two troll guards in this large chamber, and Darinka, this is the end of the last session, Darinka, Tom's new character, the human female wizard, casts Fireball. This little marble of fire whizzes down the corridor, illuminating it as it goes, passing by the two trolls who see it, and then it goes poof into the large chamber. That's how we left it last week. We didn't roll initiative or anything. It just seemed like a dramatic. Tom said he wanted to cast Fireball, and I was like, sure, go ahead and roll, and I did damage to the trolls, but then when we got together this week, we had everyone roll initiative, and as it turned out, Darinka had a 21 initiative, so she went first, so it basically worked out the way it would have. The battle against the two trolls wasn't really anything to write home about, but now the players have this large chamber with 4 passageways branching off it, and they have a decision to make. They think a lot about trying to lure the trolls to them, but they have just cast Fireball, which is a very loud explosion, so basically every troll in this entire cave system knows something's going on. Their new bard, Alejandro de Modesto, volunteers to go into the chamber and make noises like an injured troll, which prompted me to say, do you speak Giantish? Do you speak the language that the trolls speak? And Anna, Alejandro's player, said, no, I don't. So I'll just go in there and I'll make the sounds of like an injured human. I said, okay, great. Her plan was to pretend to be a wounded human, wounded in the battle against the trolls, calling out for help and therefore luring the trolls into this cavern. But she had her made a deception check and she rolled like a 3 on her deception. So Alejandro's performance was not enough to fool the trolls. But it did mean Alejandro was in this cave, which meant that he could hear these sounds coming from 2 of the different corridors, these guttural growling sounds. Alejandro doesn't speak Giantish, but Keck, the Dwarven War Priest, does, which was a great opportunity for me to text TJ at the table, Keck's player. We're all on Google Hangouts, which means anytime I need to have a conversation with one player because they speak a language that the other players don't speak, I can just text them on my phone, and that was really neat. It created this interesting moment because Keck misinterpreted something that I texted him. He hears these 2 different trolls talking from 2 different branches of these corridors, and they are basically arguing over which tribe of trolls is going to deal with these human intruders. One of the tribes calls themselves the Top-Knots, and the other tribe calls themselves the Slaverers. Now, slavering just means drooling like a madman, so the slaverers are the trolls that drool, but Keck misinterpreted that, TJ misinterpreted that, and saw it as slavers, and so he thought, oh, there are some hostages down here. Now, I didn't bother correcting TJ when he said, oh, they're slavers, maybe they have slaves and hostages down here, because to me it made perfect sense that Keck, who speaks Giantish, is not used to hearing the Giantish the trolls speak, and so he would mishear it and misinterpret it. So that was kind of neat. For a few minutes, they argued about whether or not the trolls had hostages, whether or not they were slavers. But then TJ recognized, oh, wait, when he went back and reread the message, he's like, oh, no, they're slaverers, meaning like drooling trolls, not just regular slavers. At this point, Alejandro had been standing in the middle of this chamber with 4 branching corridors coming off it for a little while. And these 2 troll tribes are arguing about what to do with these humans. And so one of the trolls just gets fed up and hurls a javelin at Alejandro. At which point the players, I think largely motivated by Nicodemus, the Count of Ren, said, look, let's just go kill some trolls. Why are we using deception? So the players go after the trolls that threw the spear at them. They go exploring this natural passageway in the Underdark, but they don't find any trolls. The trolls have retreated. As they journey down this passageway, they're constantly reminded of this awful putrid stench that is so bad it like clings to the inside of their nose. Remember, the gnomes said that there were trolls down here and something else. They called it a rot elemental. So there's a lot of disgusting refuse down here. There's lichen on the walls. There's water dripping from the ceiling, so the floor is always moist. And they pass a couple of passages, a couple of branches off this corridor they're going down. And each time they do this, they stop and they use survival. They have a Knight of the Green Order with them who is kind of part ranger. He's a paladin, but he is a dex-based paladin. And so he took different skills than a normal paladin would, I think. And so he's making survival checks to see which direction did the trolls go. That was useful because at one point they found a branch of the corridor and they noticed that the tracks that went down that branch were not troll tracks. They were these tiny little reptilian tracks. And that caused Anna, who used to play Nasa, to say, ooh, like troglodytes? Because though Alejandro de Modesto, her current character, has never fought troglodytes, her old character has definitely fought troglodytes. And I said, yeah, Alejandro's been around the world. He's had some adventures, so he knows what troglodyte tracks would look like. And the player's like, okay, well, we don't want to bother with troglodytes right now. Let's keep going. They keep exploring. They find another branch of this corridor that does have troll tracks going down it, but these troll tracks are older than the ones they're following. So the players decide, let's keep following the fresh tracks, which I kind of did on purpose because I wanted them to have trolls behind them. I wanted them to get caught in like a troll pincer movement. So I intentionally decided that the active tracks, the trolls that had thrown a spear at them, had retreated into the farthest part of this cave system, which caused them to bypass these older troll tracks, which meant once they got in a fight, these other trolls down this corridor were going to come out and attack them from behind. Which is basically what happened. They got into a big fight with 3 different groups of trolls. We'll have a picture of it over here. And it was pretty thorny. That's basically the only thing we did. We played till midnight. We started a little bit after 8 o'clock. So they spent about 3 hours, I think, just fighting these trolls. It was pretty crazy. There were a total of, I think, something like, 14 trolls down there, maybe more. And the players did a pretty good job of keeping the trolls from all being able to swarm them, right? Graves, because Graves now has the mask of the Shadow Dragon from killing the Shadow Dragon in the previous adventure, was able to summon a Shadow Demon. Now, Shadow Demons don't have a high AC, but they have crazy high hit points, and they are ethereal, which means they take half damage from basically all weapons. So he was able to summon one Shadow Dragon and send it to stop one group of trolls from coming after him, use the hunger of Hadar to stop another group of trolls from coming after them, and thereby fight one group of trolls on their own terms. It was super clever, it was tactically advantageous, but it did mean that the battle was a lot more sloggy than I thought it was going to be. I thought a big part of the fun of the battle was the players being surrounded, but they did a good job of stopping. And I guess if I had wanted to, it was just one Shadow Demon holding off like 6 trolls, but it was an incredibly tough demon, and the trolls were just desperately trying to rip this thing apart. So I sort of regret having thrown 14 of the same trolls. These trolls had about 100 hit points each, and I had given them this rot ability that they could use they could spit at the heroes, and then the heroes had to make a saving throw, and if they failed, they got a disease. I basically stole it from another monster. You can probably guess which kind of monster if you know what I'm talking about. And some of the trolls had the ability to, if they grabbed you, if they got a claw attack on you, they could pick you up and drag you into their cave where they have a hole they can drop you down. But that didn't happen because the players did a good job of keeping their really high armor class characters up front against the trolls they were fighting. There were 3 groups of trolls, and like I said, they used the Shadow Demon to stave off one of them, they used the Hunger of Hadar on another one, and then they put their high armor class fighters up against the third ones, and they were able to fight the battle on their own terms, like I said, and I didn't have a good solve for that. And as a result, the battle went on for a long time and was kind of boring, and like I said, it was really sloggy. It was also kind of a tedious battle because some of the players, like Salar Bearmantle, Lars's new druid character, and even Darinka, Tom's new wizard, they had lots of cool special abilities they could be using, lots of different spells they could use, but they were always constantly afraid of the troll regeneration. So they would use much simpler, lower level spells like Produce Flame or Flaming Orb and just do that over and over again because A, it did some damage, and B, it stopped the trolls from regenerating. So that was tactically very wise, but it was kind of boring. This is a great battle for Kek, by the way, and will continue being a great battle. There are lots of trolls down here because Kek wields the Maul of Zarok the Lawgiver, an ancient dwarven hero. It is a life-stealing maul, but it only works against chaotic creatures. So if he does a critical, a natural 20 against anything that's chaotic, and these trolls are chaotic, then he does an extra 3d6 damage on that attack, and he heals for that 3d6 damage. Plus, Kek is the character who drew from the deck of many things, and one of the things he got was an artifact weapon. Well, he already kind of has an artifact weapon, so I just took the Maul of Zarok the Lawgiver and gave it another ability. I gave it the Giant Slaying ability, and trolls are giantkin. So he actually did, after rolling a whole bunch of 1s and 2s and 3s, he finally critted a troll, which means he did the 2d6 damage from the Maul, plus 2d6 from critting, plus 3d6 from the Life Stealer, plus another 2d6 from the Giant Slayer. He did 9d6 damage against these trolls, which I described as Kek swinging the Maul, and as it smashed into the troll's skull, it instantly disintegrated the troll and turned it into a pile of ash that fluttered to the ground. The players seemed to like that. They didn't finish the battle, by the way. It got to be midnight. They had killed off all the trolls in one group. I think that was about 6 trolls. And they had successfully used their spells to keep the other 2 trolls at bay until eventually they retreated. Once they had retreated, the players were like, okay, look, let's stop. Why don't we retreat? So we took a picture of the battlefield. We'll start at the same place next week. And next week, I'm going to try and make it a little bit more interesting. I think it was a mistake for me to just deploy, like I said, I thought these trolls would be interesting to fight because even though they were all the same, they could do things like spit at you and give you disease or capture you and drag you and drop you into a bottomless pit. But the players had really good solutions for those things. And as a result, a lot of that stuff never came up. So I think what I'm going to do next week when we finish, there's still a lot of trolls to kill in this place and some other interesting stuff down here and lots of treasure. I think what I'm going to do next time is there's going to be different kinds of trolls. I'm going to go back to the kind of 4th edition way of running the game, which I quite liked, where there's going to be, trolls in heavy armor, and there's going to be ranged attack trolls, and there's going to be at least one troll shaman that's casting spells. That'll mix it up a lot, and I think it'll make it a lot more interesting to fight. So stay tuned to next week's campaign diary where we'll find out whether I was right. So this week's campaign diary is legitimately short, but the one good lesson in it, I think, is that it can be fun to throw a whole bunch of bad guys at the heroes, 14 rot trolls, right? But mix it up a little bit. Not all 14 rot trolls should have exactly the same stats. You need some guys in heavy armor to be the frontline guys. You need some lightly armored ranged attack trolls. You need a troll shaman, maybe more than one. Shaman covers a lot. Typically when I'm running a bad guy shaman, I grab warlock spells or priest spells, curse, or magic user spells. I basically just whatever spells I think are appropriate to the situation. I could have even used troll minions. I think that's something that I'm actually really surprised they didn't use in 5th edition that I loved from 4th edition, was the idea of the 1 hit point monster. It has the same armor class as the other bad guys. It does as much damage as the other bad guys, but as soon as it takes 1 hit, it goes down. Maybe that doesn't make sense for trolls. Trolls are basically just big bags of hit points. But if we had, that's what I should use the troglodytes for, right? I should have the troglodytes swarm out. I still could do that. Stay tuned for next week. Have the troglodytes swarm out. They each only have like 13 hit points, which means basically if anyone hits those things, I guess that's the equivalent. A 5th edition minion is just something with so few hit points that the heroes are probably going to kill it in one blow. And that'll be the test next week, is when the troglodytes come out to defend their troll allies. Now the players will be swarmed. These little troglodytes are easy to kill, but they can get into spaces the trolls can't, and therefore provide the trolls with advantage. That'll be the test next week to see how the battle in the troll warrens goes. So while the players did like the fact that it was a straight up fight, it was kind of boring for some of the players because they were just using the same abilities round after round, and the situation with the trolls wasn't really changing much, so it didn't give them any incentive to change their tactics. But next week, the battle against the trolls, the continuing, consider there's a whole other branch of this troll warden with another tribe of trolls down there. So I have at least like 2 more chances to turn a battle with a lot of trolls into something interesting. That I think will be, next week's battle will I think be more interesting. People often ask whether or not my players watch these videos and so know what I'm planning or know how things went or see me pulling the curtain back and exposing my thought process. But usually my players only watch these videos after they've been up for a couple of weeks because they just, I think like most people, they dip into the channel like once a month and get all caught up. That's it for this campaign diary, folks. Thanks for watching. I think the next video is either going to be a video about a campaign setting. We're going to do a whole series on campaign settings, but we're going to break it up. I don't like doing, if I'm doing a series like the Getting on the Grid series, I don't like doing all the videos in a row just because I don't want folks who aren't interested in that subject to check out because that's just weeks and weeks of me talking about one thing. So I think the next video is either going to be the first in the campaign setting series, or I wanted to do a series on what I call a hot start. I think most of the advice I've given is the slow burn, right? Where you start at first level and you meet in a tavern and the blacksmith's daughter's been kidnapped. It's super straightforward. It's easy. It's maybe the simplest way to get started, and therefore it's the reason that I advocate it, but that's not how I do it these days. These days, I typically run what's called a hot start game, where we might start at 7th level and the players are already famous characters and they start in the middle of something crazy. Let me know what you want to see. Come by, check out the doobly-doo. There's a link in there to an idea informer that I started, which is basically a way for you to submit ideas for future videos and then go read what everyone else has submitted and vote on the ones that you want to see. As always, there are no ads in front of my D&D videos. I don't have a Patreon. If you want to support the channel, I encourage you to come by my Amazon page. There's a link in the doobly-doo. I am an independent fantasy author. That means I write fantasy novels and I sell them to you direct. I do not like the idea. I am philosophically opposed to the idea of gatekeepers. I like the kind of tastemaker ecology better. I don't like having people between the content creator and the audience. I've got 2 books done. I'm working on the 3rd. Each book is $4, of which I see $3. So if you buy both books, you're throwing me $6. Next campaign diary, more trolls. Until then, peace out.